Oh, man, it's time with Tom Bray. It's the voice of the road, rolling live out of the Passport Studio.
Stop reading stuff.
Man, yeah.
You know what you gotta say,
That's
man.
what I gotta say.
You gotta
That's what I
say. You
gotta
know what
say.
you gotta say, man. You come down to the Crescent City with all your sick friends and all those hippie people that rally around you. You got a hippie next to you. By the way, names are pouring in for Madison on the chat, dude.
Oh, nice.
Names are pouring in. Somebody's calling her the journeyman.
Journeyman.
Calling the journeyman. There's also, there's
I like that
Madman. There's Madman Madison.
Oh.
Which I kind of like as well, too. Stuff is pouring in. Scat Pack, by
Matty.
the way. Mad Matty.
Mad Matty.
Nelly, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. A little Mad Matty in the house talking with Phone Master Dre. Tom Bray, by the way, has been a regular recurring segment, reality, fireman, Army veteran, truck driver, realist, tell it like it is kind of fella. But I got an important question. Yesterday we had Gary Graff on the show talking about the 501 essential albums of the 80s, Tom. And now I'm going to date you a little bit. If you had to give me 2 or 3 albums from the 80s, Tom Bray, that were your go-to albums, what would they be?
Number one, and I got Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell.
You can't do Meatloaf. It's 1978, dude. It's 1978. You can't do it. And that's what we were talking about yesterday, because you made me think about that. But I realized that the 80s, people released an album in 77, 78, 79, and it still would dominate the 80s, right? Crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
Well, I thought that yesterday when somebody brought it's like, oh, that's mine. I got to have that one. And I thought it was the late 70s, but
You were right.
I got sucked in. I got fired up.
I saw you on the exchange, and by the way, that album is so good, and I don't know if you know this, but Jim Steinman wrote that album as a parody of Bruce Springsteen. He actually sat down and said, I want to see if I can make fun of Bruce Springsteen while simultaneously celebrating him. Is there a finer line in rock and roll than from Bat Out of Hell when he says, I'm going to hit the highway like a battering ram on a silver black Phantom bike?
There's the one thing about that album, you took the words right out of my mouth, is a fantastic
It's my
song.
favorite song on the album. It's my favorite.
Paradise by Dashboard Lights. My wife and I, when that comes on, whether we're in a bar that's got karaoke or we're just in a bar, we stand up and start singing that one immediately.
Oh, my God. Well, it's Cold and Lonely in the Deep Dark Night, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. My favorite, it's got the greatest punchline in rock and roll, too. The 2 great punchlines in rock and roll, I think, are in Led Zeppelin's Fool in the Rain, when he says, I run in the rain till I'm restless, I run in the rain till I drop, just a fool waiting on the wrong corner, just a fool waiting on the wrong block, which is making fun of Genesis's misunderstanding. What I really love is Now I'm praying for the end of time.
And praying for the end of time. Lord, love you till the end of time. No, I'm praying for the end of time.
Just to hurry up and arrive, because if I got to spend another minute with you, I don't think I
really survive.
And by the way, it's a bad segue. We got to make this segue. We're going to keep the phone lines open and welcome Tom for his first edition of On the Highway with Tom Bray, Road Gang Radio edition. It's good to have you at 615-292-6366. There's been a lot of...
To finish your question.
Finish it up, man. Come on, let's do this. Come on, let's go.
U2, Joshua Tree.
Oh, my God. I actually stood in line at the Metronome in New Orleans waiting to buy that on the day of release. And boy, does that date me, huh? The idea of standing outside in a line to buy a vinyl record. So good, dude. Yep. So good.
And the other one was 1980s, very first year of the 80s, AC/DC Back in Black.
And by the way, that is the first album that is named in the 501 Essential Albums of the 1980s. It is the first one. He gets to 1980, and there at the top is AC/DC's Back in Black. Oh, my God, you could actually power your... So let's include Bat Out of Hell. Think about a truck driver with Bat Out of Hell, Joshua Tree, and... we just
Back in Black.
Back in Black. All three of those just kind of playing on repeat. Totally work.
Well, It could keep you going all night.
No, it could. It could. And then you could turn over to the road gang to actually do your chaser with a shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, Tom, there's a lot of discussion these days, a lot of people talking out there about the English proficiency situation. We talked about it yesterday. We've talked about it all week long. But it ain't the only thing. What I wanted to call today's segment is it ain't just English proficiency. There's a lot of stuff that you got to be in order to be behind the wheel, correct?
Yeah, and that's the part that, the English proficiency is really, filling up the room at the moment. And this has to do with, what's coming the end of the month now is, the officers are going to use the interview portion of a roadside inspection to see if the driver can speak English sufficiently. Then they're going to do a road sign check with the drivers to make sure they can understand road signs that use English. And then they'll put them out of service if they can't understand the English or they can't read the signs. So that's like you said, you talked about that yesterday. That's filling up the room at the moment. But there's still all the other things that are out there. The driver still needs to be 21. They got to have the experience or training or both to safely operate the vehicle. They got to be physically qualified. There's a lot to all these different things. So,
It's interesting.
There's a lot there.
I know you've been listening all week, and the reason I know you've been listening all week is because you've been chatting up a storm on the chat over on the Tube of You, which, by the way, has 821 subscribers now after having less than 300 2 weeks ago. But I wanted because Andy Polikoff was on from the CVTA, and they are over the moon delighted that it seems that the FMCSA is beginning to remove CDL mills from the equation, beginning to basically attack people who are doing wham bam, thank you ma'am, help them take the test sort of training here. But we're still a long way from having a really kind of standardized situation. So when we say the virtue of training and or experience, I want to go through what that training has to be and to get that CDL, but I also want to go through the experience part of the equation and what they mean by that. Take it away.
Yeah, this is one of those regulations that in the technical world is referred to as performance-based. It doesn't say the regulation itself, 39111B3, doesn't say the driver has to have 200 hours of training. They have to have 500 hours of training or 800. All it says is that the driver can, by reason of experience, training, or both, safely operate. That's the key. So as a motor carrier, that's kind of their responsibility, is to make sure that you have the training and or experience to safely operate that vehicle they're going to assign you. So there's a lot that goes into that when you sit down and think about it for a second, because if you don't have any experience, you need to have some training. I mean, that's just kind of the way the world works. In the performance-based world, that's what you need, one or the other. So the training is going to need to be a foundation. It needs to be something that you can build on, that gets you a good start, that gets you that you're safely operating. You might not be an expert. You might not understand the intricacies of the world. You might not understand how grocery warehouses work or steel mills work, but you can at least send the truck down the road in the right direction safely. So that's and get backed up into where you need to be to load and unload. So that's the training component is like the building block that everything's built on. And then from there comes the experience. That's what gets you so you can operate as a solo driver in all these different environments and do the different things you need to do and know all the things you need to know. But if the person doesn't have that training to begin with, it leads to disaster. I haven't been a safety person in the industry road testing drivers coming out of some of the truck driving schools. We knew which ones were the CDL mills and which ones weren't. And we were a little unique where I was at, because we would hire people out of the CDL mills, but we would tell them right off the bat, you're going back to square one. We're going to start over with you about this is how you hook a tractor and trailer together. This is how you make a right turn. You look in your mirror, you decide the position of the truck, you decide the position of traffic, you start the turn. Because what they had been taught, the truck was always hooked up when they got in it. They never had to couple and uncouple. To make a right turn, you drove to the line and you turned the wheel as hard as you could. The checking traffic, checking the truck position on the turn, all of that was not there because these drivers had been trained on the CDL course. And if they drove to this line and then turned, the other one I used to get was we'd be coming to an intersection where they had to turn in a commercial industrial type area. Well, which sign do I have to start downshifting at? Well, there is no, what do you mean sign? Well, they always had speed limit signs right where we needed to start downshifting. It's like that's not training.
Yeah,
Somebody,
that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut
yeah.
it. You actually started to answer the question I was going to ask you, which because Donnie Tulk comes on the show on a regular basis for Education Station, and we talk about this all the time. But the idea is also, I was curious, given the time frame in which you've been in the industry in regards to that particular role, when you have a legitimate school, when you have a legitimate CDL, training program. Did you ever get a chance to work with those trainers? Did you ever get a chance to work with those trainers and be like, where is this guy at? Where is this gal at in his or her training? How can we help them pick up the slack, as opposed to recognizing the CDL mill guy? And here's my other question for you, Tom. When you recognize it's a CDL mill, are there moments when you're like, I don't know if we can get you there? Or do you make a decision to say, this guy's got the chops, he just didn't get the training? Are you able to kind of determine that?
Yeah, and that's why we'd do our own road test, of course, once a driver came in. Experienced drivers, we were judging them. Can they safely operate on their own? Students, we were judging them. Are they doing well enough we can get them with a trainer? And somebody that we picked up on real quick that they came out of a CDL mill, okay, we're going to have to do the extra training. And then the decision became for us, because being a business, it was, is this going to be worth it in the long haul? At the end of the day, are we going to end up with a good driver that's going to stick with us? That's something we looked at right from the first time the driver walked in the door. Is this somebody that's going to stick with us? Do they have the aptitude, and are they going to stick here? And a lot of times, the road tests with these, it would take us, those of us that did road tests, it'd take like 5 minutes. You'd figure out this person was not trained well. So then you would basically take the road test and turn it into a training encounter. What I need you to do now is we come to this intersection, look left and right, make sure there's nobody, and then get your truck to this position, look in your mirror, see where the trailer's at, and then decide when to turn. And you could fairly quickly catch on to if this person's got the aptitude, the ability, the teachability. Those are the kind of things that we'd be looking for in that situation. That would go a lot further than, being able to do things wrong, and then have we had where they come out of the CDL mills, they were doing it wrong, but they had the attitude that I'm not changing this. This is the way I know how to do it. I'm not going to do anything different. Those were the ones that I'm sorry, man, you're just not going to make it here. Or there's something you picked up a vibe that this person's looking for somewhere to work for 6 months and then move on to someplace better. That was another one we wouldn't put a whole bunch of training time into.
Yeah, because what you really don't want to do is you don't want to become the de facto trainer that actually pays them while they get trained to go off to what they consider to be bigger and better places. Or worse than that, I can give you a scenario I can think of right now. You go to a CDL mill, you get the CDL. You go to an OTR company. You go to a company that needs to get the places across state lines and all that kind of stuff. But what you really want to do is work at home, but you can't work at home because those kind of people are looking for people who have experience driving in cities. So they use you for 6 months to get their skill set up, and then they go back home and they get back with the wife, and good for them, but you know what, they need to pay for that training. It's not your job to provide that training, and that's one of the biggest problems that we often find is that you end up having to onboard people who what you're really doing is you're giving them training in which you pay them.
Yeah, and they've already paid, and this is the sad part to me for some of these new drivers. They've already paid somebody several $1,000s to teach them the basics. And all that person did, or that organization did, was got them a CDL. They didn't teach them anything about how to actually drive the truck in traffic around the country and in all these different places. So, we end up having to put that training into them, teach them the basics they should have learned before, and they already paid that money to learn. So we're now, as a company, putting that time and effort into them. Then we put them with one of our trainers, and the trainer takes them out and does their thing with them for, 2 to 4 weeks, whatever it takes to get them finished off. We call that finishing training. To get them finished off. At that point, we've got a lot of time and effort into this person. That's why at the very beginning we were picky about it, because it's like, if we're going to put this time and effort into you, we want to make sure we're not that stepping stone for you. We at the company I was with, we had over the road, regional, local, but local you had to be in certain areas. So, and there had to be an opening. So that's something you work to. So it's like we offer you the gambit. So we'll do our part to help you fit your schedule to your life. But we do expect you to stay here. I mean, that's why we're doing this. There's companies out there that are the opposite, where they want the new guy. They want them to quit after 6 months. They want them to quit after, at least before the year, because that's when the big pay raise comes in. But a lot of us companies that are out there, we're the other way around. It's like, no, we want those senior experienced drivers. Fleet I was with, our average seniority was close to 20 years, because we wanted those people around, because those were the drivers. We didn't have to tell a driver, this is what you need to do when you get to this grocery house. This is what you need to do when you get to this plywood company. The drivers knew what they were doing. Basically, with our fleet, the art of dispatching was about a 30-second ordeal. Yep, you're going over to such and such to pick up such and such. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.
The other thing, Tom, it occurs to me, too, and it goes back to what you said earlier, the reason why having comprehensive training or good training is so important for somebody that you're bringing on is exactly that. So when you get to the warehouse, that's the kind of training, basically, that the fleet should be doing is, okay, so when you arrive at the warehouse, this is how you're going to want to handle things, as opposed to being like, okay, once again, from the tap, here's how you back in. Really quickly, I don't know if you heard it, so I got a chance to talk to Kevin Lindsay, just a couple of days ago. I got a chance to kind of shoot the breeze with him, and we got his origin story. And one of the most difficult things that's happening right now in trucking is that Kevin's grandfather, one of them was a used car salesman who actually worked on the cars to get them up to speed on the lot. The other one was a mechanic. Kevin then worked off of a farm as well. He then goes into the Air Force where he works on trucks, and he has experience at about 3 or 4 places along the way, teaching classes and working for Cummins and Eaton and a whole bunch of stuff. That person doesn't exist as much anymore. So it becomes more and more a downloaded thing in order to get people. And by the way, we're talking with Tom Bray this morning here with On the Highway with Tom Bray on Road Gang Radio. We're going to get to all the other points here, Tom, but at the end of the day, what I'm really concerned about is there any way forward? We talk to a lot of training folks around here to somehow figure out some way to get that finishing school as a regular thing, so that when you come out of the training classes or the CDL mills, that we have a system in place. Did you guys ever figure out a system, I guess is what I'm asking, when you ran into a CDL mill character or candidate?
Yeah, the biggest thing we did, and by the way, I'll tell you my little bit of further back into my backstory. In high school, I worked at a service station, the old-fashioned service station with tow trucks, repair bays, gas pumps, the old-fashioned service station. And as soon as I got my driver's license, I was out doing winching in snowstorms and during just accident cleanups and things when I was 14, because that's when they hired me. Child labor wasn't such a big, labor laws weren't such a big thing back in the.
Oh, I know. By the way, I can tell you a story about a 15-year-old kid in a warehouse at National Canal Villery, basically running the forklift, taking stuff off the back of the truck at 3 o'clock in the morning. How many people do you think are going to allow that to happen today? It's like 15-year-old guy basically unloading pallets of strawberries. Come on.
Yeah, well, as soon as I got my driver's license, my boss was excited. Great, I have another tow truck driver. Go hook up that car that we're going to sell on a mechanics lien and back it into all the different parking spots.
Yeah, I went to work on a movie.
Figure out how to back it up.
Yeah, I went to work on a movie set at 16, and they threw me the keys to these cars, and I'm like, look, I had a driver's license, but think about that. I'm on a movie set for Angel Heart, and they're like, here, take these keys, back these cars up, and they're like 1950s cars that are like worth a fortune, and I'm like going, today they'd be like, are you out of your mind? Somebody would literally run you off the set. That's just the reality of it. I want to shift.
But that goes.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When we take that person out and we find out they were a CDL mill type driver, then the question became, what's their aptitude? What's their trainability? That was the mechanism that we planted in the system. So it was like, we're not going to wash you out just because you went to a CDL school, provided you have some aptitude and you have the ability to learn what you're being taught. So that was our mechanism to deal with that, because we always believed, and as a lot of companies do, we want to hire a good person. We hire a good person that's got the right attitude, the right aptitude. We can make them into a driver. That's a skill we can teach them. But if they don't have those building blocks, they don't, those character attributes, it's just going to be too hard to do.
All right, I'm going to do a pivot here, really fun. We're actually going to go back further earlier into your points before, because I took us off on a side rail here. So you and I talked about it, the idea that at 15 years old, I was running a forklift. At 15, I was running a forklift, and you were driving at 15, 16 as well, too. Ain't no 15, 16-year-old, except on a farm, going to be allowed to get behind the wheel of a truck unless, of course, it's a high school program. You got to be 21. That still hasn't changed at all. If you're going to drive over state lines, you got to be 21. There are exceptions. What are they?
Well, there's two main exceptions, and both of these are what are called pilot programs. In other words, they're research projects that are going on, but they're the foot in the door for the younger drivers in certain circumstances. The first one is the military trained drivers. So if the driver has a
Kevin Lindsay,
MOS.
Tom Bray. Yep, go on, continue.
Well, my MOS, I was a 19 Delta. I was a cavalry scout. My specialty was sneaking, peeking, and blowing things up. That was my specialty.
Phone lines just lit up on that one. No, I'm just kidding. Blowing stuff up. Tom Bray on the highway with blowing stuff up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I got to play with tracked vehicles, so I mean, that was a great thing for a few years. See, when you become a civilian, they don't let you do that stuff anymore. Anyways.
No, they don't. And you know what they don't let you do either? They don't let you do a 180 in a car either. Once you stop having a badge, they don't let you just do a 180 for no reason. And you don't get to run lights for free anymore either. I don't. Of all the things I miss of the old days was I don't want to be at this light anymore. Let's put the lights on. We'll put our lights on to get through this light. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Tom.
Well, anyways, like in the Army, the Army's the service that I know. So there's 88 Mikes and the 92 Foxtrots. They were the truck drivers and the fuel truck drivers. Those are those drivers that have that training. In other words, whether it was Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, if they had training in one of the truck driving MOSs, they qualify for the military pilot program. So then they can come in and operate under between 18 and 20 rather than having to wait till they're 21. The catch is the company needs to register with the program and the driver needs to register with the program, and the driver needs to prove that they have that in their background. They did that military training. So where that ties in, it comes into play is the National Guardsmen and the reservists that, at 18, they went and did their military training, and then they came back to their reserve unit or their guard unit. So they're a fully trained driver, and they're a citizen soldier, but they have that training in their background, so then they can join this program. The other one that's out there is the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program, or SDAP, as everybody just nicknamed it. What this is open to anyone, not just military-trained drivers. This is open to anyone. Anybody can walk off the street and do this. The way the program works is the driver has to finish the entry-level driver training. You can get a CDL at 18, so that's doable. You just got to go to someplace that does the entry-level driver training. Then you have to go to work at a company that's registered within the SDAP program, and then there you do 120 hours of what you might call basic training, which are the basic job skills. 80 of those have to be driving. And then you do a 280-hour probationary, which is your additional and your advanced training, things along those lines. And at least 160 of that's got to be driving. So basically, they've built a training, a pretty robust training mechanism to get these 18 to 20-year-olds out there and started. And then, once the driver's through all that training, then they're a solo driver. So that's the goal. And so you end up, you start at your 18, probably within few months you're 18 years old and you're running an interstate truck up and down the road. And one of the things about this program is it's designed to succeed. So it's a very good thing that way.
I'm going to say something really quickly here, too, and I'm glad you actually brought this up because everybody kind of talks about, the biggest question I got about the military service component of this. Everybody's saying, well, what's the point, dude? If somebody goes into the military and they're out of the military after 2 years, either they were doing it to get a little bit of money saved up or they got run out of the military. I wanted to make sure I keep on forgetting to make this point. This is really designed for National Guard members. That's what this is really designed for. It's really designed for National Guard members who actually are the genuine citizen soldiers. And when I say that, guys, of course, all of our soldiers are citizens. But what I mean is they're not cloistered. They actually are back in civilian life in pretty short order as well. Tom, we're going to run out of time here for the first half of the first On the Highway with Tom Bray. I want to set something up, though, because, man, this is the toughest one. It's, are you medically qualified to actually drive? And the reason we're gonna have a longer conversation on the other side, and guys, you can call us if you want to join in the conversation at 615-292-6366, is recently we've begun to see an uptick in younger people coming back into trucking early. But there was a while when the industry wasn't graying out, it was graying in. It was graying in, if you know what I'm saying. Older people were getting involved. But a lot of people didn't understand they weren't coming in great shape. And I don't just mean overweight or type 2 diabetes. There were people who were not strong enough to do the job, right, when they're older. I mean, that's something we didn't think about, correct?
Yeah, and this is just like old trucks need more maintenance. Old people need more maintenance. So
How's your knee doing? How's your knee doing, Tom? How you holding up there?
My knee, my hip, my shoulder, they're all doing okay today, but not yesterday. No, that's just the reality of working with older people. And that was something that, like you said, the industry wasn't really prepared for that. Over the years, we've always been a second career because of that whole 18 to 21 issue. We've always been a second career, but we will get older and older people joining the industry. It gets harder and harder for them to pass their DOT physicals. So that is a challenge at times.
And a lot of people don't realize that they come into the industry later and they think, and by the way, they're great at the CDL school. They pay a lot of money to get a great, a great CDL program really takes care of them. They end up with a good company, and then it turns up they show up and it's like, dude, you've got some medical conditions in regards to how you see, where you hurt, how you exist that need to get taken care of or can't be taken care of. We're going to take a quick break here, Tom. I can't tell you how great it is to have you back on the air. It's nice to be back home, isn't it? Nice to be here, huh?
It is. It's great to be here.
It is great to have Tom Bray on the highway. Don't forget Washington Trucking Week comes after this. Tom, by the way, is in his regular old slot. A lot of other people have had to do the curly shuffle. 615-292-6366. It still spells Nemo. You are a member of Nemo Nation. You're listening to Road Gang Radio. Hey, man, big fat Roger that. Hashtag RGR. It also stands for the resistance. Join it, know it, live it, learn it. New Orleans!
Freight is moving at Creek Carrier and Schaefer Trucking. We are growing and our customers keep growing with us. If you want to be part of a company that appreciates what you do and rewards you for it, you should check out Creek Carrier Corporation. We're looking for safe drivers that have at least 1 year's experience and take their jobs seriously. Then we reward you with great pay and some real serious benefits. Freight's moving, so check out Creed and Schaefer today. Go to creekcarrier.com and find the right job for you.
The Joshua Chamberlain Society is unlike any other veterans organization. It's truly a family, and I know that firsthand from working with them myself. Their mission is to make wounded veterans and families of deceased veterans feel the support and appreciation of their community for life. Our veterans' injuries are permanent, and so is the JCS support. From monetary assistance like paying utility bills or college funds to helping our heroes find purpose, JCS is a family that surrounds and supports the heroes who have sacrificed so much. Learn more and make your donation at chamberlainsociety.org. That's chamberlainsociety.org.
Wait a minute. Are you running all of your rig's accessories?
All of them. You like that?
No, why would I? Your engine's turned off.
That means I ain't violating no idling laws. You like that?
No, why would I? That means you're running off your battery.
I'm running on an Odyssey battery. You like that?
No, why wait. Did you say an Odyssey battery?
Odyssey battery. Rugged, maintenance-free, thin plate pure lead technology, and massive deep cycling capability. Plenty of reserve power to run onboard accessories. Engine on or off. Twice the power, 3 times the life of conventional batteries. That's an Odyssey battery. You like that?
No, I don't like that. I love that. Wait a minute. The crickets stopped.
Odyssey hasn't.
Get yourself an Odyssey battery. Performance you can count on.
Did you know it's extremely easy to join the Wreaths Across America mission to remember our fallen heroes, while at the same time honoring those who are currently serving our country and their families? Plus, you're helping to teach our younger generation about the value of freedom. With just one $17 donation to Wreaths Across America, you're sponsoring a fresh Maine Balsam Remembrance Wreath. They've really become a symbol of America's respect for those who bravely served and are no longer with us. To sponsor your wreath, just visit wreathsacrossamerica.org. That's wreathsacrossamerica.org.
Are you on the hunt for the perfect place to recharge after a long day or week on the road? Look no further. Hotels for Truckers, designed by truckers for truckers, provides free membership that unlocks access to deep discounts and spacious tractor-trailer parking at thousands of popular hotel chains nationwide. Enjoy incredible discounts, earn valuable points, and enjoy a great night's rest. Download the Hotels for Truckers app today and make your long hauls more restful and affordable.
I always love hearing that song. It gets me a little pumped because this is Road Gang Radio, live from the Fastport Studios in NOLA, hanging out with Tom Bray and Jimmy Mack.
Oh, deedly dandy over here in the city of New Orleans. And by the way, he mentioned Fastport, who solves America's toughest recruiting and workforce challenges. We also want to give a shout out to our friends at ShadyRays.com. Go to ShadyRays.com because they've got your back with their lost and broken protection programs. And by the way, their customer service is off the chart. Go to ShadyRays.com. And don't forget, if you break down on the side of the road, jump around, truck down. Get up, and truck down. 50 states, 8 provinces, they take care of you. Go to truckdown.com. And Dre almost knocked over the flowers. It's my fault. I put them there, Dre. Big shout out to Chuck Snow, who sent us a bouquet of flowers to tell us thank you and congratulations on opening our new studios here. Tom, at some point, and I'm telling everybody this, just a heads up, I know you hate coming to New Orleans. I know you hate Mandinas. We're going to be here. We're going to be here on July 23rd for Lindsay's opening of her new show, We Should Write. We're throwing a big Fastport ribbon-cutting ceremony over here, and that's a really groovy thing as well, too. So see if you can keep the 23rd of July open to bring you and the wife down. I'm just putting it in your ear, okay?
Oh, I happen to be free that time, so I might very well be able to pull it off.
Well, by the way, we'd love to have you down here. You get to watch Dave play the congas and Andy Polikoff, the head of the CVTA, play a little guitar. Should be a lot of fun. Lindsay's going to be singing. Bring some of her friends down as well. All right, Tom. People can't travel anywhere if they're not in good shape, if they don't get that medical card. Since this is our initial debut here on Road Gang Radio, explain the medical card a little bit and how it can get you out of service really quickly.
Yeah, the way the medical card works is it's, drivers that have been in the business for a while understand this. You got to go do a DOT physical. The DOT physical has to be done an examiner that's on what's called the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners. When that came into play about 10 years ago, that was a lot of excitement because they actually trained all of the people that do DOT physicals, the doctors, the NPs, the chiropractors, on how to do a DOT physical, which tightened up the standards. They didn't change the rules. They just changed the training that the examiners went through to make them more proficient at what they did. So, that person that's doing that exam, they know the DOT regulations, they know what they're looking for, they know what they're checking. And then they basically go through and make sure that you don't have any disqualifying conditions. That's the key thing they're looking at. So, you're not missing limbs. All your arms, hands, and fingers and feet work. They're making sure
Hey, by the way, we're laughing about that. You'd be amazed. People show up all the time, and it's like, hey, dude, you're missing 3 fingers. How exactly are you going to drive this truck? Now, there are people who can do it, by the way. And there's a guy. Yeah. By the way, I met a guy, our friend Doomer, who Dre knows, introduced me to this dude. Guy doesn't have an arm, Tom, and guy has a CDL and drives like there is no tomorrow. Oh, yeah. Dude is awesome. I mean, it can happen. But, man, if you show up with 3 fingers short or you're blind in your left eye without a pair of the right glasses, they're going to be like, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we can actually make this work, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it, because all the stuff they have, like the diabetes is a good example of that. You have insulin-dependent diabetes. Oh, my God, I'm done driving truck now. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
There's a whole mechanism there that you can go through, prove that you're stable. You get your treating doctor to give you a certain form the DOT requires. You take that to the medical examiner. Next thing you know, you're good for a year. You're certified. Same with vision. There's a process. If you only see out of one eye, well, it's monocular vision. There's a process for that. You have a history of, respiratory problems. Well, there's a process for that. You got to satisfy that DOT examiner that you get adequate rest. You can breathe well enough that you're not going to pass out driving. So, whatever it is, there's a process for it. Some of it falls back onto us as the drivers. If your blood pressure is too high, they're worried about you stroking out or passing out. So, what they want to see is that you get that blood pressure under control. That means you need to get to your family doctor or find a family doctor if you don't have one. Get in a treatment regime. whatever the doctor says you need to do to get that blood pressure under control. Then the DOT examiner sees the improvement. He gives you your medical card, or the usual path they'll take is they'll give you a short card. It's called a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day card. Get this under control, and then we'll give you a longer card. So there's processes there, even if you don't make it through. But a lot of that then falls back on you as the driver to do what needs done to get it fixed, get it corrected, get the waiver, to go through that particular process to get there, whatever it might be. So that's the other half of it, is you have to be an active participant in this process. It's not just the examiner says yes, no. You have to be an active participant in it. Make sure that you're staying healthy enough you pass, and if there is a challenge, that you walk yourself through the process to get to the other side of it, so you can get that card and keep driving.
By the way, Tom, my father, who I've talked to you about often, who can't wait to meet you the next time you come in town, has lost 60 pounds. And he made me laugh the other day. He said it was getting so bad I actually developed type 3 diabetes. And he turned to me and he goes, the only machine I liked at the gym was the vending machine. And and that's one of the things too, is that you have to remember, we've had people on the show talking about the idea that you ain't got to be an athlete, but you have to realize that, for all the mental gymnastics you have to engage in behind the wheel of the truck, you also have to make a real effort to make sure that the most important instrument is working there as well. It can actually put you out of service. Chowda is giving us a call. He wants to get in the car. I think he just wants to tell you hi, Tom, but he's got a couple of things on his mind. Chowda is giving us a call. Say hi to Tom Bray on the highway.
Good morning, Tom Bray. Quite the honor to talk to you. I love listening to all your segments, your information. It even keeps a half-crazy, three-quarters out of the world schizophrenic like myself in line. So,
thank you, Chowder. I think. Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'll ask my other half of my personalities. We'll get back to you on a conference call. Hey, morning, Jimmy Mac. Morning, Dre. And first of all, I'd like to say, everybody, happy Father's Day when you get to it, because Chowder's almost done for the day, and then I'm going fishing for the rest of the day.
Outstanding.
Yeah, Tom, I and Chowder have a few ideas on this driver training, I guess you've been talking about, and regulations. Do you think that maybe FMCSA and CSVA and all them people, or CVSA, whoever they want to be for the day, should get together and put a guideline of you must have 5 years legitimate over-the-road driving of all regions and all seasons before even becoming a driver trainer? Because I used to be a trainer 28 years ago when I started. I've been at this 30. I don't know if I really felt comfortable being a trainer back then, and I hadn't been to the West Coast over the mountains by myself. And I'm not sure how somebody with only a couple years at most experience, I hear a lot of times they've only got 6 months experience when they start training people. How can they adequately train the proper slowing down and usage of vehicle safety features if they've never been over high grades and slopes and snow and ice without experience? And also the other thing I would like to see is, I think maybe they could find a way to make the training programs that they're doing a mandatory of 6 to 9 months before you can cut them loose. I know in South Dakota we got a thing where when you go to get your regular driver's license, you got to have so much time logged, and I think it's a month of each, of night driving, driving in the rain, and driving in adverse snow and ice conditions before you can even go test for your regular license. If states are doing that, shouldn't we have something like that implemented into the CDL world so that we don't get these students coming out with a 4-week to 12-week training program and never been over mountains or adverse conditions if you did it in the spring and live in the Midwest?
Well, you touched on a couple of things, Chowder. Trainer qualifications, there is, if somebody does entry-level driver training, they're supposed to have 2 years of experience, but that's kind of the end of it.
Oh my God! And by the way, really quickly, guys, you want to send Todd Spencer of OIDA into apoplexy. So they get it finally to the point where in order to be a trainer, you have to have 2 years, and then they come back. Then they come back and they say, "Hey, can we make this a year and a half?" And I mean, Louis Pugh almost had a stroke. He was so angry. He's like, "This is the bare minimum. We barely accepted this, and now you want to roll it back 6 extra months." And that they didn't get it, by the way, but they actually came back and they did it because, Tom, I don't know, Chowder brings up a great point. and I'm going to say something here real quick, and then I want to get Tom's thoughts, and then we'll end with Chowder's thoughts on this. I don't know if you can get a driver in every region, Chowder, but there has to be some kind of formula where you say, look, we can't get you to drive every region, but you have to have done at least one coast-to-coast trip where you actually were the driver of record. You have to do a number of hours with somebody else showing you how to train. And this is where simulators really could be really helpful, because while they're not a substitute, you can use them for other situations and then build up this profile of a checklist of things you have to do. And in that way, I won't lie to you, Tom. I'm kind of with Chowder here. I don't feel like 2 years is enough, with a big exception. So Chowder's a veteran, you're a veteran. If somebody has 2 years driving for a company but did 3 years in the military, working on trucks and driving trucks, that there can be some exceptions built in for experience. I don't know if 2 years is enough. And I'm going to ask you that question, Tom. Don't worry, we won't hold you to it. But I'm kind of in agreement with him here. Do you think 2 years is actually enough?
That's the minimum they came up with for an entry-level driver training instructor. And the concept behind that, I don't know. I wasn't involved in the committee that came up with that rulemaking. But the logic that I've heard used in the past for that 2-year thing is that's 2 summers, 2 winters. You know, they've replicated success over that 2 years, hopefully. And that's one of the issues that is out there is, you know, what level of success did you want to see that driver achieve in those 2 years? What did you want that driver to do in those 2 years? You know, so there's holes there as far as that 2-year requirement, because 2 years would be enough if the person was exposed and successful at all these different things. And then you touched on one of the big missing components, a train-the-trainer program, you know, to where, okay, you have to learn how to be a trainer. There's a difference between being a good driver and being a good trainer. A good trainer has to be able to communicate. They need to understand adult education. They need to understand how to supervise an adult and how to achieve goals and get desired outcomes. So it's a whole different thing. You're not judged on your success as a trainer. You're judged on the success of the individual that you trained. So it's a whole different concept. And to me, that's one of the big chunks that's missing. Then the problem, the problem, or it depends on how you look at it, is now you turn the driver over to a company for the finishing training. There are no rules there. I mean, that's wide open. That's where you see the trainers with 3 months, 6 months. You see the guy doing the training, that the reason he's doing the training is he's crashed so many trucks that we can't have him drive his own truck. You know, I've actually encountered that. The insurance company won't cover him anymore, so now we're having him do the training.
You know what it is, don't you, Tom? Is somebody in an office someplace read a book where it said those who can't teach and said, I got just the guy for the job.
I thought it was those who can't teach and can't drive dispatch, but okay.
Man, Chowder, you've become my favorite right there.
Hey, I got to pull into this Pepsi place off this service road, but I got one more question for you, Mr. Bray, before we go. And once again, I'll have a happy Father's Day. I heard there was a company that used to, and maybe they still do, and I don't like to call out companies, but since Chowder doesn't really have many morals and ethics left, I heard Stevens used to have a program where they would go out 2-3 weeks with a trainer, air quotes, as a student, air quotes, and then after they came back from that 2-week, 3-week run, they would put 2 trainees together and let them go out for a month and then come back before they could get their own trucks. Is that stuff still kind of happening? Because that doesn't seem real smart either, that you would put 2 rookie novices together after very little training and then go, if you bring back the steering wheel and a bumper, we'll give you a NASCAR trophy.
Well, that used to be the companies that did that, and there was a bunch of them. It wasn't just the one. They called it A-B training, where your A training was done with a trainer, and then your B training was with another student, you know, which is one of those things that kind of faded away because a lot of people looked at it objectively and said, what is one trainee going to teach another trainee? You know, basically you've got a team where you have neither driver that really is solid at what they're doing yet. So yeah, that kind of faded away over time. There's probably still some companies doing it.
By the way, this channel does not endorse or deny anything that our good friend Chowder has says, but we like him a lot and therefore we support him. Really quickly, by the way, before you get out of here, Chowder, a couple of folks on the chat on YouTube have kind of keyed into this. Cody says they should have trainers with more experience because how can someone with 2 years have enough knowledge to teach a new person? They haven't even learned enough themselves. The only exception I would make, and I agree with Cody, and I think we're all kind of in consensus here, but it's a minimum situation that's kind of going down here. And I think Tom is right, and I think even Chowder would agree with us. If that person has coast-to-coast experience and has gone through 4 legitimate seasons, and by the way, my rule is, can you hook up chains and then decide whether or not you can drive in those conditions? If you know how to figure that out and can explain why you did it, I think you rise to the level of trainer. That's the absolute truth. Dre's got a comment real quick.
Well, I'm just going to say Chowder's seen himself out, so he is no longer with us.
Chowder is no longer with us.
On the line.
But I know he's listening.
Well, he said he had to swing in and take care of something.
He had to take care of something. And by the way, we really appreciate the phone call, Chowder. We really appreciate Bandit jumping into the conversation. Brad Bentley is listening, tells us everything is going great. Road Dog Coffee Company calls us the best damn show around. The gang is amazing. This is the best damn truck show on all platforms. And our good friend, by the way, Ben, wrote to me and said, sounding good now. All it needs is an AM station, and then it'll be like the old days. I don't know. Maybe we'll end up on an AM station as well, too, Tom. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it as well, too. I want to talk about, and like I said, this is really what's fun about this platform, Tom. We can actually go afield. Our corporate overlords are no longer listening. I wanted to make the joke, and I think Madison will get this joke as well, too, that you can drive even if you're in the condition of Saul Guerrera as long as you're able to still handle the truck. I mean, that's really what it kind of comes down to. Just want to kind of point that out. Tom and I are big Andor fans, and I don't know if you've been watching it, Madison. I got a big nerd over here, big movie fan, hasn't seen. Oh, come on, Madison.
Come on.
Yeah, but you don't actually make movies for a living. Madison does. All right. Okay. Let's get back to driving under the influence, because I know we harp on this a lot, but by the way, I don't know, guys, if you know this, we tend to record these conversations. They end up back on YouTube, and I'm just going to give this to all the people in our company who still don't know enough about trucking and have them listen to it. Tom, let's talk about the influence, where you claim you're under influenza, but actually you've had too much to drink. Talk about it.
Yeah, there's different ways you can get yourself disqualified. We've been talking about being qualified, things you need to do, all those things we talked about. But there's also disqualifications. There's certain things you do that will automatically bounce you out. One of them is getting a DUI and a CMV. You get a DUI in a commercial motor vehicle, you're done at that point, because what's happened is that's called an actual knowledge situation. You're taken out of the seat and you can't drive until you've done the SAP, the return to duty process, all that. You served your 1-year suspension of your CDL, because that comes with a DUI in pretty much any vehicle. But if you got it in the commercial vehicle, you get that additional thing where now you can't drive till you do the SAP and return to duty process. So it's a big deal, and it's one of those things to watch out for. And we have a very good industry, and I've got to pat us on the back. There's a certain segment that creates problems for the rest of it, but we have an incredible, our drug testing rate, and alcohol testing rate, we hang right around 1% positives. I mean, that's outstanding, so we do a good job. But you still need to be careful. You need to pay attention, and because we do be careful and we do pay attention, that's why we're good at this anyways. But the biggest watch out for I always warn drivers about is the day after the Super Bowl scenario. You go out and you have a great time, you watch the game, you drink like a fish, to use a Wisconsin term, by the way. I have no idea what it means, but you drink like a fish till 2 in the morning.
We say it down here too, by the way, and it's like I've always said on a spending spree like a drunken sailor is one where I'm like going, I've never seen a sailor on a spending spree. I've never really seen that. I've never seen that, especially ones that have marine tattoos. But go ahead, continue.
Anyways, you spent all night drinking. 2 in the morning, you lay down. 6 in the morning, you get up to go haul your load. You're still under the influence. You haven't given enough time. Legally, the laws and the regulations say you have to have 4 hours between when you stop drinking and start driving. But if you drank from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 o'clock in the morning because you were doing the Super Bowl party thing, you are not going to be ready to go at 6 in the morning, because it's going to take at least an hour to clear each drink out of your system. So the more you drink, the longer it's going to take to clear it. So that's one of the biggest things that I see where drivers accidentally get themselves under the influence in that commercial vehicle. And same thing, as far as protecting your CDL, watch what you do with your personal vehicle. I mean, be very careful with that because your license is your livelihood. But there's other things out there to get you in trouble. Possessing alcohol or drugs in a commercial motor vehicle is an automatic disqualifier. Leaving the scene of an accident, using the CMV to commit a felony, and the one that's going to make a big difference in a little bit here, jumping an out-of-service order is huge. If you jump an out-of-service order, you're automatically going to be disqualified. It's just a matter of for how long. The English proficiency is now adding another violation to that list of things that you're going to be put out of service for. But if you jump the order, now you're going to have some serious consequences.
Tom, I had a glib question for you. By the way, if in fact you are drunk, can you also then simultaneously fail the English proficiency because of your inability to speak the King's English? I'm just curious. I also want to point out to people, do not confuse, and this is somebody who is a longtime non-drinker and knows this stuff inside and out, do not confuse your high metabolism and your ability to sober up quickly with you being legally sober. And I mean that, because I know people like my brother John, he's 6'7" both ways. And when I tell you, Tom, he can polish off about 4 or 5 old fashions, and then 3 hours later he is crystal clear. But he also knows he still won't drive because he also knows that he'll blow positive. That's important.
It's still in your system. That's the part you have to understand. The other thing is, and I always explain this, you're not starting from a true baseline. I was really drunk. Now I feel sober. Well you're comparing it to what? The correct thing to say is I'm not as drunk as I was 2 hours ago. You're still not sober, and you're still not down to where you need to be to operate a vehicle. So, yeah, that's and you hear that a lot. Where I'm good to go now. It's been a couple hours.
No. I'll give you one. I'll give you one that people need to think about. Like I said, people say, "Well, I'm not going to get myself in trouble." I can give you a scenario, particularly for young drivers, that can get them in real trouble. This is a big one. You live in Colorado. It's legal in Colorado to smoke that Mary Do You Wanna. Absolutely legal. And you haven't smoked your Mary Do You Wanna, but you got a backpack. And in your backpack is your stash because you like to be Baron von Gruvenstein on the ski slopes. You jump into your cab with that bag. If for any reason that bag is discovered with that Mary Do You Wanna in it, and you're in the great state of Arizona, it's been nice knowing you. And even if you're discovered in Colorado with that bag, you're done.
That's the problem with being an interstate operation. If you're an interstate driver, you fall under the federal regulations, the federal laws. Marijuana is still a Schedule I, meaning it can't be used, it can't be prescribed, it's a controlled substance all the way around. So it's period, no period. I guess I did that backwards. Yeah. It's no period as far as interstate drivers go. And, you mentioned, it's illegal in Colorado. Well, you still have it in your system. Now, 2 days later, you take a drug test because you work for an interstate trucking company, and now you failed it. You cannot argue. I was in Colorado when I did it. The other one you can't argue is it was only gummies. I've had that argument.
Oh, my God.
Run by me recently.
But it's crazy.
I didn't smoke it, but it was only gummies.
It was only gummies. And, I mean, that's like I said, it's like, that's always, I tell this people all the time, too, especially with marijuana. If you are an over-the-road truck driver and you go to a party where you have a couple of friends who like to party and somebody serves brownies, you might want to ask the question. Because the thing about that is you eat the brownies and you get stoned, okay? And you're like, oh, I'm not going to drive tomorrow or the day after. I'll just call in sick. The problem is 3 weeks later, you test positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you're in trouble. That's why, when you're at a party, I always get the brownies that come in the wrapper, just mentioning it.
Yeah, but the thing is, given the fact, like I said, you're okay because you're in Wisconsin, but if you go to Colorado and you pick up brownies that come in a wrapper, they might be wrapped in something else too. I mean,
valid point.
You never know, and that's a big thing. We're going to run out of time here, but I do want to talk about something. Leaving the scene of an accident. And I'm not talking about a fatal accident. I'm talking about simply you have a scraper. You're not at fault. You got to get the job done. Too bad. Stay there until it's all taken care of, right?
Yeah, and the other thing you have to watch out for is the famous scam. And just a word of warning for those that aren't familiar with this. You rub a parked car, just using an example, okay? The other guy says, hey, pay me $50 right now and I'll forget all about it.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one.
I love this. This is going to get me out of this. Here's the $50. I'll see you later. Next thing you know, you and your company are served with a suit because he was sitting in the car, he's got pain in his neck, his shoulder hurts, and now you have law enforcement people looking for you because you left the scene of an injury accident and the other person has all the evidence that it happened. You have no evidence that you actually talked to the driver or other driver and paid them $50 to make it all go away.
And even if you did, it doesn't matter. Even if you did, it doesn't matter because you
still left the scene.
You still left the scene. You still left the scene. And by the way, body cams, front-facing body cam. I got to tell you, Tom, I have a little bit of experience with this. I can't tell you how many times somebody has sat across the table and we've turned on a camera and made them watch what they actually did and said, oh, wait, you didn't know we were wearing a body cam or you didn't think about it. Don't leave the scene. Make sure your cams are on. It's really important.
Yeah. And get the one of those things that's like, well, we called the cops and the cops wouldn't come because it was minor. Great. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Guess what the police logged in their back office? They logged a call about the accident at 12th and Danbury at 3:15 p.m. So there's proof that you didn't leave the scene of an accident. You notified the police. The police chose not to come out. Everything's cool. You did not leave the scene of the accident without doing your due diligence. So it's a huge thing that goes on out there, and there's something you need to be careful about. Is if you do damage to somebody's property, stand up, do the right thing. Hey, that was me. How do we handle this going forward? And if they say don't worry about it, get some kind of documentation or make that call saying, hey, this happened, I need to make sure there's a record of this. So get that taken care of so you don't get in trouble on the back end of that situation.
And by the way, if somebody that actually was in the right and you end up hitting them and says don't worry about it because when the police arrive, I promise you, whatever they didn't want you to worry about is going to be quite entertaining when the police get there. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? You know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like, no, we're okay. You can go. No, let's stick around for the police and see what kind of plays itself out right now. That's always a really good time because often one of two things is happening. One, you're being scammed. Number two, the other person doesn't have insurance, doesn't have their license up to date, and is desperately trying to avoid being in a situation where the police ask them for their info and they're in trouble, and then we're off to the races. Stick around. It never hurts you to stick around. The worst thing you're going to get if you get into an accident where it's your fault if you stick around is that's an easy problem to resolve moving forward. Leaving the scene is not. Correct?
Exactly. Well, there's other things too that, by the way, that get you in trouble. You know, there's watch your speed. Speeding 15 or over the limit. You do that twice in a 3-year span, you're in trouble. You know, reckless driving, improper lane change or lane use. You know, there's just follow too close. Basic, safe, and defensive driving. You know, keeps you out of those situations. You know, watch out with the handheld cell phones and texting. You know, everybody's familiar with it. Hopefully, if not, now you are. Virginia Tech did a study several years ago now. A person texting is 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash than that person.
You're drunk.
Not.
You're drunk.
Basically, you're worse than drunk.
Yeah, because at least the drunk sometimes has a high metabolism like my big ass brother. I mean, that's the absolute truth.
And they realize they're doing something wrong a lot of times, and they're trying to they're trying to stay out of trouble.
Tom, have you watched Andor yet? We got to wrap this up. Have you watched Andor in full yet? Where are you at?
I have not. My wife's to-do list exploded on me. I've been so busy of an evening. That's on.
Oh my God!
Next on my binge list.
Oh my God, Tom! I'm going to tell you something that'll make sense after you watch it. I have friends everywhere. Tom Bray has joined us this morning. I'm just going to say that, Tom, and leave it at that. We got to let you hit the bricks, my friend. We're going to work out of the ability to talk over the breaks, but, man, I will give you a call later on today. Thank you, Tom, for being a part of #RGR.
Love it. Glad to be here.
Tom Bray on the Highway is a regular recurring segment on, well, #RGR every Thursday at 7:30. We're going to make it a long form, by the way. I dig that. Colin Long is coming up here next, guys. Keep the chat going on the tube of you. We got thousands of listeners, by the way, over on the Book of Face. The numbers are growing every day. Join the resistance. Write us at weekends@radionemo.com and just put up there, I want to join the resistance. The next newsletter for that comes out Monday. Dre, break us away.